Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of TBR. I'm George Binns, and here we are at the beginning of the election season. And surprise, all the city councilors and all but one of the school committee are running unopposed. And the other fun thing is almost, I guess, the last meeting of the city council, the mayor proposed and the city council approved a renovation and restoration project for the city hall. And that's what we want to talk about today. To help us understand it, we've got with us Jim Modugno, a native son of Beverly, and he worked here, and he's still...
I'm still here.
Still here?
Yep.
Out at Endicott at the Graduate School of Business, right?
I do a course or two out there, yes.
Yeah, so...
But other than that, I'm just retired.
Yeah, having fun like the rest of us.
Absolutely.
And so what's going on with this project?
Well, you know, when I first heard about it and started looking into it, I was baffled by it. I really didn't understand it. So, you know, what I wanted to do here is just give you a little outline of what we want to talk about, and it'll cover a lot of things. So if we could have the first slide, I think that might help us. Okay. So what we have here on the slide is we're just showing that this is the information that we were able to gather from what the mayor has said, what some of the councilors have pointed out, as well as what we've been able to read in the paper and doing our own little research at City Hall as well as other sources. And basically the city is actually allocating $25 million for the redesign of City Hall.
Yeah.
And in addition to the police station that was once there,
Yeah.
and see what they can do. They probably need that space, but that's, you know, definitely, but 25 million just sounds like a whole lot. We're going to talk about that. And then because they're doing the complete renovation, they needed a place to find where they're going to put all their people during this renovation, which is going to take anywhere from 18 to 24 months, they're saying. So they went out and they tried to find some space, and what they decided is that rent was too high. We're going to talk about that. $8 million they purchased the property that was known as the Dana Family Property Series something out of Newton.
Yeah.
And that's for $8 million. And I believe that property was assessed at what, $2 million?
$2 million, yeah.
Yeah, $2 million.
Yeah.
And so we want to talk about a little bit about that. We want to talk about the reviews and
Yeah, that used to be, that's where the dollar store is.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's in the middle of Cabot Street.
Yeah, so, you know, I can see why they might want it there. So we're going to talk about the benefits and the risk, but we're also going to talk about where are all the alternatives? Where did this all come from? It's just out of the blue. All of a sudden it's right there, and they rush it right in front of the aldermen, councilors, right, today.
Yeah.
And ask for them to, yeah, I know. Yeah, well, I'm not exactly young anymore. So the bottom line is they put it out there, and these people had to make a go, you know, no-go decision with what limited information that was provided to them. And later on, what we want to do is take a look at this total cost of about $34 million and talk about were there other opportunities, alternatives, and what is going to be the impact on the community with all this additional debt.
Yeah.
So that's where we kind of wanted to start off on that, George.
Yeah. So what do the numbers really look like?
Okay, we can go to slide 2, please. So looking at slide 2, what you're looking at here is an estimated cost of about $25 million. Now, that will have the impact of that $25 million is going to be, some of it's going to be when the architects and everybody take a look at the police station and what it's going to cost and what are the alternatives. And they have 3 alternatives, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So the cost could be actually a little lower maybe on the 25 end, or maybe it could be a little higher. I don't know. There's not enough detail on that out there. You get the architecture fee for, you know, $1,500,000. They're purchasing the property for a price of $7,350. But they also need temporary build-out, meaning they need to make it suitable for the offices to be set up, run in all the cable lines and everything else, IT lines, for them to be able to do their job at about $650,000. So you come up to about $34 $0.5 million right there,
Yeah.
right off the bat. So when you look at it, look at the big picture, and we have it up on the slide here. Right now, the city has outstanding debt of 107, 106, 100, like, round it off, $107 million is what they have for debt they're carrying. And now we have a potential of adding 34.5 million more, which comes to a significant amount of money. So thinking about how they went ahead with this, one of the things they did is they decided that renting property was just going to be too expensive for them. I think they were saying about $500,000 a year in terms of that. So what I did is I went out on the site and I checked out Cummings and all the people who are renting property in this area. And Cummings had a comparable piece of property for about, was almost 19,000 square feet. They were looking for 18,000 square feet for their office space at this moment in time. And that came in a heck of a lot lower, about $306,000 per year to rent that out. So they could have saved some money. They could have done that. There's also, the other thing is when they bought that property, when they bought that land there, obviously it came with the parking lot in the back and everything else that went with it. It also it will be taking property off the payroll in terms of tax payroll.
Yeah.
So in this particular case, they're going to lose about $94,000 in tax revenue coming in on property taxes for the first 2 years.
Yeah.
And could lose more depending on how long they actually hold on to the property.
Yeah.
And every year that goes by, it's going to cost you more and more money. Right.
Yeah, it's $45,000 a year
Yeah.
that they're sacrificing for this building.
Yeah. When you look at some of the things that you go, and I don't have all the answers because you can't get them all out there. It isn't.
Well, that's the point we're in right now, is that we're asking a lot of questions, and we can make up some numbers based on what we can dig out of the websites and what we know about property and so forth. But we really need to get an official assessment of, okay, what were the alternatives that they considered that led them to the conclusion the best way out of this is to renovate City Hall and take over the dollar store property.
Yeah, I mean, they came to that conclusion, and and like you just said, we don't know what exercise they all went through because it's not even available to the councilors based on the ones who I've talked to, and as a result of that, we're just putting out what we can see, what we know. You think when you bond money, right? When you borrow money, you're basically taking out a muni bond.
Yeah.
And typically right about now, they're about 4% to 4.5%.
Yeah.
And so if they were to take out that bond, they're going to be looking at somewhere in the vicinity of over $1.3 million each year for just interest payments.
Yeah.
Right? That's not even, figure in the fact you still have to pay it back, right?
Yeah.
People think you just pay the interest and you keep going, and it doesn't happen that way. But I think there's lost opportunities when we look at it, and I looked and said, how did we get here? Because it doesn't make any sense to me, right? It doesn't make any sense to me that we went out and bought a piece of property. What were we trying to do when we bought that piece of property? Were we trying to prevent the people who wanted to develop it to build a 5-story building right on Cabot Street? Maybe. Did they want to preserve the 100 parking lot spaces in the back and get control of it for the downtown businesses? Kind of looks that way a little bit, right? The combination of the two. And they could not stop the development because of the zoning laws.
Yeah.
They were building right to the zoning law.
Yeah.
And if they did that, we would have lost a lot of parking spaces. So I think it's just my interpretation, nobody said anything different. I think they bought it so they can control the property.
Yeah. Well, I've seen a couple of analyses that were done that said that, well, we really didn't need that property for a Saturday night when there's some sort of show going on at the Cabot Theater or the Larkham. There is enough parking around that those facilities could still function. But when you talk to most of the people that do go downtown, finding parking on a Saturday night or some other time is a real challenge. So this is an ongoing problem with the downtown area.
Correct.
That there just really isn't that much parking available. So
That's true.
I can understand your conclusion that, yeah, this was a big driver in the decision to, not quite eminent domain, but by a very
Clever.
idea, take over the property that's the dollar store and the parking lot behind it.
Yeah, and if you look at that whole thing and you think of, I just want to read a couple of comments. I have them here somewhere. I mean, Mike Cahill made it perfectly clear that this was an opportunity for them to get control and also the opportunity to protect the parking spaces, but also it was to get an opportunity to maybe control 50 lower income rental property in the future.
Well, that gets to be another interesting ingredient. They're buying a piece of property for $7.35 million.
Yep.
That was going to be sold for close to that amount to convert it into condos and apartment houses and all that kind of good stuff. And they were all going to be market rate. Now you come back and you find yourself that, okay, we want to sell this property to some developer, we the city, but you can't put in 113 units at market rate. You're only allowed to put in 50 units at something significantly below market rate. So what was worth $7.35 million for 113 apartments is not going to be worth that kind of money for 50 below market rate apartments. So the city's going to take a bath, get a haircut, whatever euphemism you want to use, when they try to sell this piece of property, especially without the parking that's behind it.
Correct.
So that is a permanent loss.
Yeah, and if you kind of look at it just the way you explained it, we don't know if we're going to get our money back on that property.
Well, we can't.
In essence, I think you're correct.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be something less than what we paid for.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, this is all taxpayers' money,
Yeah.
right? And when I look at that, I just don't understand it. I mean, you know how I feel about City Hall in terms of the mayor's office. I mean, he's in the social engineering, so getting as many as low-income housing as you possibly can get. I mean, we all know there needs to be some, but he really goes and pushes the envelope when it comes to this.
At this point, I got to get on my soapbox, but I have been advocating for years what I call complete cities.
Yeah.
That one of the characteristics of the complete city is everybody that works here can afford to live here. So we have a lot of people working service jobs that are minimum wage plus a little. Mm-hmm. And where are they going to live? And I've had discussions with the superintendent of schools about her previous career as a teacher and how it was so difficult to find housing accommodations here in Beverly. And she had to end up getting a roommate to be able to rent someplace. So you look at the situation and, yeah, we could use a lot more housing that is affordable. That's Andrew DeFrenz's favorite line.
Yep.
And I can understand the city's need to get into it. And we can get into a discussion going about the wisdom of giving away the Briscoe School to Harbor Light, but they're going to produce 80-some-odd apartments for seniors that we need. So somewhere along the line, the city has got to get into the game and can't depend upon an outside developer to magnanimously produce way below market rate apartments and still think they're going to make a profit.
It's a valid point.
Cummings is very generous and very charitable, but I don't think they're that charitable.
No,
or anybody else for that matter.
And quite frankly, they don't need to be, and they shouldn't have to be, right? The community needs to be able to develop their own identity, right, and be able to do that. Growing up as a kid, a lot of times the factories I worked at the shoe, right? I'd say probably about 20% of the population commuted into there from outside.
Yeah.
As far as ways southern New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Because that's where they
Yeah.
wanted to live, and people do that. When I was down in Gloucester, not everybody worked down there came from Gloucester. They came from elsewhere around.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a normal thing that goes on. But I look at it as a great opportunity was missed when we sold the Briscoe School for a song. We passed up on it,
Yeah.
right? And we could have come up, if he wanted to come up with a better plan, might have been able to work something out with them where they got their property, but we also got the ability to put City Hall down there, or maybe even a fire station down there or a police station down there, right?
Yeah.
But we didn't do that because I'm not so sure we do a hell of a job of planning it at times.
Well, that gets us into the transparency question of that we've been starting this discussion on. A decision was made, a plan was proposed,
Yep.
and it's not intuitively obvious that that's the way to do it. And there is no information available as to why
Correct.
this is the greatest plan possible.
Right.
And that's what you and I have been struggling with for a couple of weeks now, trying to understand what makes sense in this whole episode.
Yeah, and if you think about how the city has changed, and your point about the parking, I'd heard it from one of the councilors, and he said, really, the parking is needed on basically Thursday through Sunday night.
Yeah.
During the day, he said, the parking is not a problem. It's the evening hours that becomes the problem. So it is a challenge. It's there. So, you can give them you can give them a few pat on the backs for trying to solve that problem as well. But at the same token, I'm still hung up on $34 million of taxpayer money because that debt, with 107 already on the books, is going to drive us to do different things. I think it was the council's financial advisor or something who indicated that the city has to be prepared to maximize Proposition 2.5 for at least the next 2 years and maybe more.
Well, that's the other issue that sort of surprised me is that, this past year, the property tax went only up 1.5%. That was great, except when I looked at the assessment on my house, it went up 8%. And I'm not sure, I don't think I'm unique. I don't think anybody's picking on me.
No.
But I think citywide, I think there's been a significant increase in tax revenue due to reassessing. So what the council advisor probably didn't say, and oh, by the way, we're going to assess property more often, more frequently than what we have been, just to keep up with the market values on the houses.
Yeah.
So, the city's going to have to do lots of things to come up with the money, and
I think it's going to be difficult.
Yeah.
I think we're in an inflationary period right now. It's hard. People are just barely getting by in terms.
Yeah.
People say, well, inflation's coming down a little bit. Well, you're still about 4.5. But when you think about food, you go to the supermarket, those food prices are up over 30%.
yeah,
Energy costs, whether it be gas for your car, whether it be oil that you're going to put in your heating system this winter, is up close to 40%.
yeah. The one I always like is you go to the market and you buy a pack of crackers or a pack of cereal, and it's the same old box you always had, but you look down in the corner and it doesn't say 16 ounces anymore, it's 14.
It's the shrink factor.
Yeah, so I mean, this is going on, it's going to continue to go on, and you read anything on the economy, and the problem that all these stores are having is, can they push the prices up to cover their costs?
Right.
And so that's one of the ingredients. But back to our basic issue that there are alternatives to this particular program.
Yeah.
And there are other ramifications of doing this. What else is going to be impacted?
I mean, it might have been advantageous for them just to sell City Hall, and maybe take one of their properties, maybe the McEwen School. Maybe they could have used the McEwen School. They maybe could have used the Balch a few years back before they sold that, and they didn't get their true value on that either.
Yeah.
Although it turned out, I guess, pretty good on that. But is there other property? The Briscoe property. There's fields in the back. It's possible to build something.
Yeah.
get it back and build on something like that.
Well, the point you made about the Beverly Golf and Tennis on the Shag Field.
Yeah, let's put it on the Shag Field right out there.
Yes.
Right?
So
There's plenty of room. We already own it. There might be some violation. There might be some laws there because they had bought that property on a federal loan.
yeah, there's
So,
some funny
but I'm just
background on the Beverly Golf and Tennis, the way it was given to the city,
yeah.
and so they might have some restrictions on it. But again, I think we as taxpayers would like to know that, oh yeah, we couldn't do that because. Okay, I understand that.
Whoa.
Whoa.
I missed it. We'll get it later. Yeah, we just missed out, and we don't know that information. We get no information about it, right?
Yeah.
It's not shared. In reality, like I said earlier, you and I shouldn't be here even trying to present all these different numbers. It should be the mayor sitting here giving a presentation to the whole city as to what he did, how they did it, what they're going to do next, et cetera, so they have an understanding of where that money's coming from. Because you can tell one thing, with the inflationary periods, meals taxes are going to go down, excise taxes are going to go down coming into the city coffers. It's just going to happen.
Yeah, it makes
Right.
it more difficult.
It makes it a little bit more difficult for them to be able to swing that.
Yeah.
And adding that on. But, we never heard anything about any of these properties, right?
Yeah.
No looking around for any other areas to put it. It doesn't have to be downtown. City Hall doesn't have to be downtown.
Yeah.
Really, the economic center of Beverly today is Cumming Center. Like it or dislike it, it is. And
Yeah.
it's reality. It's got everything people need,
Yeah.
right? And that's kind of like we're migrating to that. But when we look at how they're going to be able to really pay for all this, with the muni bonds and everything else, it's just amazing. And I'm disappointed because I think the communications is horrible. I think the total leadership is wrong. I think the councilors were bullied into doing it, and they might say they did what they thought was right, and that's okay. They're getting paid to make the decision. But the fact is, every one of these type of decisions that come through lately have always been last minute.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, this is what you need to know.
Yeah.
Not everything you need to know, just what you need to know.
Yeah. So we're getting into a discussion, I think, that there's going to be a charter adjustment made. I haven't heard yet what the state is going to allow us to do, but the idea that perhaps we should get a different form of government and go to a stronger city council that hires a city manager. And
I
maybe
think,
that's one of the things that we should be considering. So,
I think that, I've been an advocate that the city is too big now. Its budgets are over 160 million
Yeah.
or something like that, maybe 170. It's not good enough to just have a popularity contest who's going to win mayor.
Yeah.
We need a business person. We need somebody with the skill sets to be able to do that. And we just, we stumble across people at times, right?
Yeah.
Bill Scanlon had those skill sets,
Yeah.
right? Many others before him did not have those skill
No.
sets. And currently, the gentleman here does not have those skill sets to be able to do it. And that's just my opinion. Everybody can have their own. So I think we need a city manager. I don't think we need a 4-year term for a mayor, right? Because it's like playing Russian roulette.
yeah.
You never know what you're going to get. And I think you're right about we need competent management to just focus in on the services. We want police, fire, schools, infrastructure. I don't need social engineering. I don't need somebody telling me that I have to pledge allegiance to the indigenous people, right?
Yeah.
I don't need somebody to be flying all different kind of flags on City Hall. I need them to just manage the budget, to make it affordable for me to live here
Yeah.
and as a retired person, but even for the other people. If the city's property taxes are so high, people can't live here. And that's a factor, is how much money the city spends. Think
Yeah.
about all the people down at City Hall they have, right? The mayor's got more people than, some of the departments, right?
Yeah.
So I think you're on the target.
Yeah. So basically, we've come down to the fact that the city is trying to consolidate City Hall, and I think that's a reasonable goal.
I agree.
I recently had to go visit the Veterans Affairs manager.
I wouldn't even know where they are.
He's up on the hill behind the hospital.
Oh, he is?
Yeah, he's got a, and it looks like an average house that they took over and made into an office for him, you know. And yeah, when we had Memorial, there was space in Memorial that was utilized by the city.
Yeah.
It's not the best idea to have people scattered around like that,
I
but
agree.
at least between Memorial and downtown, it's reasonable. Down at the corner, just by the school here, used to be a local police station. I don't know if it still is. So, yeah, it's a problem. And we went through the exercise of consolidating the police department for
Right.
exactly the same reason.
So this is a good idea.
So it's a good idea, basically a good idea. Is this the best way to manage it or not? That's where you and I start to have some,
Reservations.
yeah, some reservations on it. And, you know, we start talking about this thing as being a $25 million process. And as you went through the numbers, little by little, it grows up to something in the order of almost 35 million.
Yes.
So, you know, I get to this one line that was attributed to Eric Dirksen when he was senator. It's $1 million here and $1 million there, and pretty soon you're talking real money. And that's where we are right now. And as you point out, we're already 107 million in debt because, yeah, we did a lot of work. We fixed the all the elementary schools.
Yep.
We built a high school and tore down the old one. We tore down Memorial and put in a new middle school.
Yep.
We just built a police station.
Absolutely.
So a lot of things have been done. And I
Some
start to wonder,
positive things.
and they're things that had to be done.
Yep.
No doubt about it. It was the best way to do it. I suppose we could always nitpick them.
Yeah, you can
But-
always second guess that.
Yeah. And you start to wonder whether the city's got an edifice complex or not. They're always building something. But that's another fun story. But you get down to the point of, okay, this new debt will add 1/3 to our debt. That's a big hit, in my estimation. And I start to wonder, well, hey, is that the best thing we can do? And you start to look at some of the alternatives. And the city was estimating $27 a square foot
Right.
for rental space.
Right.
And at that rate, you could replace the city hall, the 1,800 square feet, 18,000 square feet, for something like $486,000 a year. Well, you divide that into the 35 million, and next thing you know, you could be renting space for 71 years. So there's a better way to do it. The same thing, Cummings is advertising. They can do it for $17 a square foot.
Yep.
That gives you 100 years of rent, kind of thing.
These are the things they should
And
maybe were considered, George, and we don't know.
they built a police station, 28,000 square feet, 28 million and 32,000 square feet. That means they could renovate the city, or they could build a brand new city hall
Yep.
for something like 15 million. And at the same time, you look at Briscoe, and that's a $55 million process. And they're doing that for something like $238,000 a square foot. So you could build a city hall or renovate City Hall for something like $4 million at that same rate. So you look at some of these numbers and, geez, it's a better way to do it. And I would sure as heck like to hear somebody tell me
Yeah, I mean,
I'm missing something. So the question I have, ladies and gentlemen, is if you're curious as I am, there's going to be some city councilors looking for your vote. I think you could ask them, what about this? And as usual, ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the show, at the credits, there's my email address. You've got a comment, and there's room for you at the table to hear your version.